So,
Uh-oh.
guns don't kill people. People kill people. While this is true, an overwhelming number of people who kill people use guns. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention statistics show that 69% of the homicide in 2014 were from gun deaths. The rate is steadily rising.
Let me get in here for just a second.
Please.
Now, on this 69%, how many of these guns were owned legally by the person who used them?
Probably about 50%.
Because if people are using them illegally, then another law is not going to matter.
Right.
Here's what I would say with that. First off, right off the bat of that article, it says that the majority of people that kill other people. Here's my issue with that: isn't medical malpractice much higher than gun deaths?
Third leading cause of death in this country is medical malpractice.
Whether you screw up and prescribe a wrong medication or screw up in a surgery room or something I feel that would probably outweigh gun usage.
But that don't include guns in the argument, so that don't count.
Right.
No, that's true. That's like saying the majority of gun deaths are caused by guns.
Exactly. That's it in a nutshell. Countries where people own guns have murders committed by people with guns. Well, no shit.
No.
Now you're just talking gobbledygook, Tony.
Yeah. Another thing, what they're not saying is most of these mass shooters turns out to be someone on their political side, anyways.
I don't give a shit about the mass shooter part of it, really, because there's such an inconsequential number in the overall scheme.
Yeah.
The vast majority of murders we're seeing in this country are inner city things. But nobody's pointing this fucking shit out. And for us to point it out on a national level is racist.
No, but that's the thing, though, is that they do point it out and then quickly debunk it, quote, in their eyes, they debunk it and say it's fucking fake news. At least the last few articles that I've read where they actually mention this shit.
Goddamn, I'm so put off by fucking stupid shit.
Well, yeah, I know, and that's the reason I know too. Also, I probably shouldn't be reading fucking anti-gun shit, but at the same time, this is the shit that's out here right now. This is the shit that's against us. It's against the shit that we believe in. You know what I mean? So
I read it too, Jimmy. Know thy enemy.
No, I know. But there's a lot of people out there that don't. All right, hold on a second. I've lost my place.
2014 were from gun deaths.
Yeah, well, fuck that one. You get the picture. They're saying if it wasn't for guns, there wouldn't be that many killings.
And that's probably true. Guns make it to where a little guy can kill a big one, whereas if he didn't have a gun, the odds of that happening are reduced. Not eliminated, but reduced.
I don't think so. Arson, poisoning, and other bombings, those kind of things are anonymous, and they can have anyone. Talk about a force multiplier. Anyone can take out populations, literally. So, no way. They're acting like this stuff is the guns create this. I don't think so. I think there's something to be said for the guns are preventing it, because guns are so easy to pick up and people have this what would you call it? Like idealistic concept of what guns can do. They think they pick up a gun and they go into a place and they start pulling a trigger and it's just going to be exactly what they see in a movie. And it's not. And they get shot back. And what's the other possibility? That people are going to be sane? No, the other possibility is they're going to go to an alternative method to do accomplish the exact same goal that they set out to do. So I don't think I think our better argument is, do you really think the existence of guns makes people crazy and makes people want to pursue these horrible freaking actions, or do you think it's just that happens to be the one thing they pick up along the way, just like they drove there in a car? Are you going to suggest that if we didn't have cars, this wouldn't have happened? The guy was wearing clothes so that he could go out into public. You know, if we didn't have clothes, he'd be embarrassed and stay home. So this would have never happened. You know, he never ate breakfast, so if it would have never happened. It's ridiculous. I think we argue that way. I think we're wasting our time trying to say he's on their side, or it's the wrong kind of gun, or even numbers. I was just looking here trying to find out how many kids die from guns each year. The best thing I can find is 1,300, but here's what's frustrating. I'll go off on that tangent in a second. But 1,300, I'll just give them that number, 1,300. There's 1,800 deaths from foodborne illnesses. There's 60,000 hospitalizations, and they'll suggest that there are, where'd it go? They'll suggest that there are 28,000. So let's give them 30,000 people injured and 14,000 people killed by guns. You know me, I look at food stuff once in a while.
Yeah.
So 60,000 people hospitalized, 14 million illnesses. So that means they estimate 14 million people get sick and just don't do anything about it. 60,000 of them require hospitalization. 1,800 of them die. And that's all about our food in this country. But we're going to talk about guns and the equivalent number of guns, which was 30,000 total people injured and 14,000 people killed. So quite a bit less. I'd say only 70% of what people die from food poisoning in this country. They're going to suggest that's an epidemic.
Yeah.
Well, you could really take it to the extreme and take the overeating side of heart disease too. And
no, that takes it too far. These are equivalent numbers. I'm going to say these are equivalent numbers, though. So I understand what you're saying. And you could say, oh, well, the number of times doctors leave sponges in there is more than the times, literally more than many more times than actual rifle murders in this country. And a lot of those rifle murders are hunting accidents and, that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm just saying because these numbers are so equivalent, doesn't that put it right there? Like, look, this is the same as food poisoning. And has food poisoning ever been an issue for anyone ever? I mean, not anymore, at least. Used to be, I guess, back in the older days.
When we didn't have the technology to fix it. Or medicine.
No, this is safe food handling, cleanliness, salmonella, cross-contamination, not cooking food thoroughly. That's where you get food disease, not medical prevention through drugs or anything. That would be like Tony saying the heart disease and shit, which is a massively bigger number because even the people that don't die shoving all this crazy food into their holes, we get heart disease and die from it.
right, but I was just pointing out if you went through statistics like they do, grabbing the most far-reaching shit possible that really hasn't anything to do with the specific point you're arguing.
Heart disease doesn't affect them because if you're talking to some little skinny kid, what the hell does he care about heart disease or what does she care about heart disease? That's something that their grandparents maybe get. So I'm just trying to put it into things that we all eat. And
that was something my grandma got until I turned 38 and had my first heart attack. I mean, just to reaffirm your point there, that's true.
He's fucking both arguments. I'm just fucking putting it out there. I'm looking for numbers that are really close so that we can compare it to something else that's in society.
Yeah, exactly. And I would almost take that same argument, but then take it a little bit further and say, okay, you got rid of guns and people are still going to be crazy. Now the death toll is going to be way more devastating because they're going to use more devastating means. Like you were saying, explosives or shit like that.
Yep.
Mike Ozzy was saying, how many kids drown in pools? That's a good point too.
I'll add something to that I read the other day, and that is that if they completely did a gun ban, it is speculated, and granted, this is speculated, that 1% of the gun owners in this country, at minimum, would not give up their guns while they were alive. And they say there's approximately 100 million gun owners, so that's 1 million people. Are they willing to massacre 1 million fucking people to get this done?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I do the
They're
math off of the quick internet search. 500 people, not kids, but people. Or no, kids. Sorry, it is kids. So 500 kids die each year from pools, dying in a pool.
Okay.
That's 2 every day. You incompassionate sons of bitches. 2 every day. Or there's a kid drowning right now.
We gotta go save him. How do we save him?
If you drain those pools, you can fill them with bitcoins, or you could fill them with, make a skateboard park.
So they could get the concussion every day.
And then an additional 332 people die each year from drowning in boating-related incidents. So I guess they separated the actual boat thing that killed you by drowning. These are just people
you ain't
actually drowned.
You ain't supposed to be running your boat in the pool.
Oh no, you know what
I know
it
they
says?
did it on James Bond, but
If I did my math wrong, I'm not saying I'm good at math. It says blah 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 about 10 deaths per day. So I was wrong. It's 10 people per day are dying from pools for drowning. I guess I'll drown. Now I'm reading it better.
you know one of the leading causes of boating accidents besides drunk boat operators
Kids.
is newbies that don't realize boats don't have fucking brakes.
Mm.
I thought it was going to be the kids.
It's not that hard to realize.
I usually wreck them when
find
I
out?
try to jump bridges like in James Bond. Never works really good.
First time I bought a boat and I took the old lady and kids. We was going up the Kaskaskia River and the old lady said, "Let's get up the over to the sandbar and eat lunch." So I'm rolling up the river and I turn towards the sandbar and then it dawns on me, how do I stop this son of a bitch?
Well, you got very lucky according to the statistics. Very lucky. All right, moving on. Second Amendment. This is the second one. Well, anyway, always with gun. Let's acknowledge that people kill people with guns. Almost always with guns. So there's that last fucking bullshit point.
What? Almost always. In other words, if you have a gun, the conclusion is almost always you kill someone? Or they're saying everybody
No.
that gets killed is almost always with a gun?
Oh, yeah, the second.
Saying everybody
Oh
that
my
gets
God.
killed is almost always
That's
with a
so
gun.
fake. That is so fake. They didn't even try to research that shit. They're just fucking going off of what they figure it must be like because they feel like it.
Back to the
Bingo.
others. As soon as I get a chance, I'm going to look up how many late-term abortions are performed in this country in a year. Because that, they can't argue is not a living human being because they could survive if it was born.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That argument is all fucking crazy. Because then they pull out the emotional shit on you.
Looks like it's consistently 700,000 a year.
700,000.
I could put in the specifically late term ones. It's less easy to find. Oh,
That's
13,000 per year. The Center for Disease Control says 13,000 fully developed babies aborted each year.
see, now that's fucking murder.
Are you telling her how to fucking live her body, man?
Yeah.
Nope, I'm telling her not to
Laying her
kill
bad.
that human being inside of her. Get it out and give it away.
Tell her how to run her body.
Damn right he is.
All right. The Second Amendment guarantees us the right to our guns. I agree. For the sake of argument, let's take the Second Amendment and apply its literal fundamentalist meaning to the part where it states a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There isn't a single mainstream politician holding office in the House of Senate who has put forth a proposal to repeal the second, so we can eliminate this argument there. Full stop. Having said that,
Really?
Yeah.
When did this happen? This is
Senate
news
cannot
to me.
repeal the Second Amendment, even if they want to. If everybody wants to, they can't do it without the consensus of 2/3 of the states. On top of that,
Most of the states will say no fucking way.
well, who was it?
Illinois would be
Michael?
on board.
Plus, plenty of politicians, elected representatives of us, well, people that voted for them, idiots. But anyway, there's plenty of politicians that have said we would definitely remove the second if we could.
Yeah.
Of course
And I
they
mean,
will.
even
on
I
our
mean,
side.
his words don't mean shit. Even that Michael Moore came up with that idea to Congress and shit about putting in a 28th Amendment that'll repeal the second and make it so you pretty much like Australia, you have to have a reason for the gun, proof that either a hunter, a competition shooter, that kind of shit. So I mean, that's definitely a possibility.
My reason is because I'm a fucking American, not an anti-American who's anti this, that, and everything else.
You need to back off of that shall not be infringed part of, because everybody's tuning a deaf ear to that thing. Although it is the key part.
Well, that's what I mean.
These people do not have any understanding of how the government was set up. These motherfuckers that wrote this all up designed this so even if all the politicians wanted to disarm us in Washington, they couldn't do it without all the states going, or the majority of the states going for it as well.
You also realize that these motherfuckers, as you say, are devoid of all sense of reality in the first place, right?
No, if you disagree,
because they are ignoring reality by trying to say, "Oh, the world would be a better place if we just got rid of all these guns." Have you seen the world outside of America? It's not safe. It's not pretty. It's not candies and rainbows. They are devoid of a sense of reality.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
Well, like the guy said in the beginning of the fucking article, if you don't have just a yes answer to should children die without any logic or any fucking type of argument to go along with that, you're illogical and the conversation's over. So I mean,
except for late-term abortion. I mean, all right, you can't convince them on the pre-viability of a fetus, but the late-term thing is a different matter because it is scientifically proven as fact that fetus, if you will, could survive if it was born.
You'll hear no arguments here.
No, yeah, and you won't hear anything from any of us. But I'm just saying, no. I'm sure there's some people out there that have differing opinions, but you ain't gonna hear shit right now. It's a talking point. They have too many motherfuckers that agree with that on their side, voters, constituents, so they're gonna stick with that shit.
I'm just saying that's the argument. They're arguing from a fucking sandy foundation there on the kids. They're willing to murder many.
School or whatever, and you're getting a degree in debating so that you become a master debater. I don't think they tell you to look at your opponent's other positions and leverage off that. I think you would do better to stay in the realm we're in. Either one, somebody who's seriously looking at this from a logical end is going to go, come on, who cares what they also believe in? What the hell? We're talking about guns here. And then there's a whole bunch of people that just write it off because you're regulating her body or whatever.
Yeah.
So
they won't even listen to that argument.
I think it's worth putting it out there, but if you can't rest your whole argument on that.
I'm only talking about their statement. If anybody cares about infants being killed or doesn't care about it, this whole line of it's bad to kill babies thing.
Well, I feel like that's part of the reason why it gets brought up. So the pro-gun people can bring that up as an argument, and then they can go off the rails and start talking about that shit and say how we're fucking monsters. I totally feel like that whole how many children have to die and should children be murdered and all that shit. I feel like that's a total setup just to like the beginning of the debate. So if somebody brought that shit up to me, I don't know, I would just try to move on and ignore it.
I mean, anybody who's been a parent knows the thought of, God, I want to kill this fucking kid some days. But these kind of arguments, I don't get how the fuck they can overlook the one side of it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So they were saying about the whole politician holding office and they can't repeal the second. So whatever. That's bullshit. Having said that, every other argument is based on how we regulate Americans. Right to bear arms like we do every other freedom.
Nice
We
try.
all enjoy
Now's your time to go.
No, I haven't. I don't need to. It's already been said.
No. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
We all enjoy.
Yeah,
That would have been appropriate to insert.
Go ahead. There's like three of you stepping on each other.
I said that would have been the appropriate time to insert the "shall not be infringed."
I thought Tony was
The
asking.
Second Amendment. You thought I was asking him what? Careful where you tread. Here.
Asking him to leave.
Good one.
No,
He's
hell
tried
no.
that before. That didn't work.
Like, that's your time to go. I'm like, okay. Guess Night Strike has to go.
That was for him to say his thing about shall not be infringed. Second Amendment's one, and I don't know if it's the only one, but it's written in the absolute. There's no possibility other shit in it to anybody who reads fucking English.
Now you're just being racist.
Okay? It was written in English.
Languageist. All right, so we're doing it.
Word.
Yeah. Right to bear arms like we do every other freedom. So we all enjoy the right of free speech, but there are libel, perjury, and slander laws that limit what we can say when it might injure others. We are guaranteed the freedom of assembly, but we must apply for a parade or protest permit to risk being arrested for obstructing traffic and impeding the rights of others. Our rights to both privacy and even sex are all regulated by certain caveats. You must be 18 to cast a ballot. Police can search your underwear drawer with a warrant, and you can't just grab a woman's pussy.
Hey, can you send me a link to this, to the article?
Yeah, hang on.
Yes, you can.
You got it? Tone?
You might. Oh, I can get it. Yeah.
No, don't worry about it. I got it. All right, go ahead. Say what you're going to say, because I'm doing something now.
The freedom of speech thing commits slander or libel, you're breaking the law. If you take a gun and break the law with it, then your fucking Second Amendment right, if it's a felony, which it most likely will be, goes out the window.
Yeah.
Because you give up your rights when you become a fucking felon. And as far as speech,
consequences. So he's saying there's free speech and there's consequences. Or is he going to suggest there's no consequences with a firearm?
I just PMDG.
Thanks.
well, that's kind of what I'm saying. If you do things with your right of free speech that you shouldn't, be it by law or just by the fact that you're going to offend somebody and take an ass whooping.
They took an American flag and laid it down and took a shitty artsy picture of it and then photoshopped a gun laying on it. So violated the flag code twice with a little artsy thing there.
Yeah, let's go after them for violating flag code. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the point of that though, they don't even fucking know. They don't.
They probably do. Because it's not commonplace to see a flag laying on the ground with shit on it. So that's out of the norm. And if you investigated it at all, you'd figure out that it's not tradition to do so, and that's disrespectful to the institution that the flag represents. So you do it knowingly.
I'm kind of a stickler on the flag thing too, which is why I hate to see people desecrating.
I'm not saying there should be any consequences other than just the awareness that that's their level of respect for the country that's allowing them to say this shit, that's giving them the place that they can freely say this shit and have a civil conversation about it. So,
but I would almost argue that when you said that research word, I don't think they do too much of that.
I don't know. This guy seems old.
What the hell does old got to do with anything?
Well, because when we went to school, they taught us how to do research. I mean, maybe not as much as they did back in the olden days, but I mean, the guy looks as old as me, so I'm guessing he's went to school the same time I did. So he learned the classical, Dewey Decimal shit. If we went to school before the internet, we learned how to research. We learned how to go into a library and find the books.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but I don't know. Some of the stuff, some of the excuse me, shit that they say, I feel like if they actually went back and researched it, or they may have went back and researched it and realized they were wrong.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
There's another one. There's this. All right, go ahead.
No, I'm moving on to the next one is all. It's a slippery slope. This might be the stupidest argument ever. The NRA would have you believe that once we allow the government to register weapons, limit the size of magazines, or enact background checks, jackbooted thugs will kick down our doors and confiscate our firearms. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You know why jackbooted thugs will never kick in your door and take your guns, aside from the fact that no one has ever told me where I can get a pair of those kicking jack boots? Oh, this guy's a fucking comedian.
Donut shop.
Because lawmakers have already limited the kind of weapons a person can own, you can't buy an anti-aircraft gun or a Pershing tank gun. It's not a tank gun, or a Pershing tank, my bad. The government will always have bigger weapons than yours. Plus, I'm still awaiting for Barack Obama to come take my guns. I've always wanted to meet him. That was that argument for that. He really didn't make an argument. He just said that's not how that works.
Infringements that were proposed in the beginning of 2013, and then the subsequent, since that was, successfully, whatever you call it, resisted.
Right.
He then used the presidential, to do them pretty much every Friday afternoon before a 3-day week. Executive orders, thanks. He did those things, I don't know, dozens and dozens. If you look at my cake video, I'd show there's the Second Amendment, one thing, right? There's the 1934 NFA, one thing. There's a Gun Control Act, one thing. 86, one thing. And then you get to 2012, and it's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens per year. So that's definitely inaccurate, and it's actually misguiding, right? It's actually disregarding actual facts, saying something else. So that's lying. That's not just that's lying.
Another side of it that they ignore too is that even if he wasn't coming to take your guns, stopping you from getting any more was just as good in his book. I mean, at least it was something.
Yeah, well, now, and if you didn't turn your shit in, technically, if you got caught with it's pretty much making you a criminal now, in a way. Indirect way, but a way nonetheless. Let's see here. If guns are against the law, then only criminals will have guns. And for anyone that's just joining us, these are our arguments, and this fuckhead in the article is trying to debunk our arguments. So, if guns are against the law, then only criminals will have guns. This is true that 34% of mass shooters were prohibited from owning weapons, but that also means 66% of mass shooters used legal firearms. What if laws simply reduced the numbers by 1 or 2 mass shootings per year? Mass murders. Fact: states with magazine capacity restrictions experience fewer mass shootings.
According to CNN.
Yeah, according to CNN.
No. Let's stop and address this bullshit one here first. This little stupid thing. If you look, I don't know, can you see my gray bar down here? Will show me where the URL is. Yeah, let me lock on you, but yeah. So when you hover over the link down here in the bottom left, right? I don't know if you can see it with everybody's icons, but it'll say everytownresearch.org. So they're getting their number from Everytown. So right there, it's bullshit. So they're not using an actual legitimate source like the Center for Disease Control or the FBI. So instead, they're going off of their skewed numbers from Everytown. They're assuming those are right. Then they go, what if laws simply reduce the numbers by 1 or 2? Well, the consequences of that may be in your feelings that, using your skewed numbers, even if we give you those skewed numbers and shit, you're going to save a few lives. But you're also ignoring, what if it's simply reduced? Well, what if the laws, what are the consequences of those laws? So you're going to take recreational shooting away from, I don't know, 50 million law-abiding individuals that represent the existing people living now. Let's go back in time to the 1700s. You're going to suggest all those people who live peacefully, are somehow don't worry about that. You're going to screw over, going forward, anybody being able to live peacefully with guns. So that's ignoring the whole culture or the community of guns and all the stuff that we do with guns that is legitimate, because you want to potentially save what a criminal's going to be able to do, maybe, if. So I guess what I'm saying is they don't acknowledge the lawful uses of guns, and that's one of the positions they're using to move the conversation from the focus from the real consequences to the potential positive, what they see as a potential positive. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just over here reading the comments. This Justin breaking the law is already illegal. If we consider the end of life with the end of a heartbeat, then a baby's life starts here. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not 100%. I'm not for late-term abortions, period, and I'm not really for abortions or whatever. I'm kind of indifferent to that. Whatever. If a broad wants to be a killer, let her be a killer. I don't care. But bringing up that argument to them, it was just like G-Webs was saying, man. It's almost borderline. It's pointless. It's pointless. Because they'll just fucking go off on a tangent on something else, and then the argument went from fucking gun control to something else, and we're the evil monster in that situation, and winning the argument isn't that important, but our voice completely got lost.
What you do with that is you never convince the antis, the diehard antis, but you get the people in the gallery watching, if you will, and you put out that, they're talking about how horrible it is killing babies while they're letting all these late-term abortions happen seems to be hypocritical.
Well, yeah, but I'll give you an example. So I was watching this one. It wasn't really a debate. It was some bullshit YouTubers. But they were going on and on about gun control. And then all of a sudden, this motherfucker said something. I forgot what it was. It was a while back. I was watching it. He said something. It wasn't along the lines of abortion, but it was something along the lines of one of the liberal bullshit. And this fucking broad just started pretty much not making any sense, talking over him, not letting him finish, and then the fucking thing was over. And in all the comments, right? Oh, she smashed him. Oh, she won. And like that, the Republicans got no answers and shit like. And the broad wasn't making sense. She was literally only just talking over this dude. So I mean, I don't know. A debate with them is I feel like is fruitless. So I don't know. Even to the passerbys, maybe might catch one. That would be good. But I don't know. I feel like if they're already over there watching some shit like that or involved in some shit like that, their mind's made up. Just my opinion. So next,
and why the fuck do we even bother to argue it?
So then, don't you figure that all these abortions are being done by somebody, or like somebody's having the abortions, right? Once you got an abortion, and you're not gonna ever be like, oh yeah, abortions are bad, right? You're gonna want to say, they're good, they're like, they're necessary, whatever. It's my body, blah blah blah. Like if you acknowledge the other way around, so you're getting all those people that have abortions to then, be hardened on that position, no?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And
no,
you're also alienating them. They might.
That's not true. Most, even the lady who was involved in Roe v. Wade came out later anti-abortion because she said it was the worst fucking mistake she ever made in her life.
Yeah, but not everybody feels like that, though.
Oh, that's a good point, though. I mean, eventually maybe people turn around. But I'm just guessing the people that are, living the lifestyle where they're having fucking abortions every weekend.
Yep. Pregnant again. But yeah, I'm not gonna get into all that. So facts. States that require background checks on all firearm sales have lower gun-related deaths per capita than states that don't, according to data from the CDC, the NRA, and Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Like Chicago? Yeah. Like New York? Like I mean, they're not as bad as they were in the fucking 90s, but still.
Well, they say per
California?
capita. They'll say per capita. So when 500 people a year die, or whatever it is, in Chicago, they got so many people that per capita, you know, the one guy in Waco, Texas, who gets killed, you know, as he's driving, or something. Then, you know, with a town of 300 people, all of a sudden that's a bigger per capita.
That's
All right,
huge,
let's take it to the top one in this country. East St. Louis, Illinois.
Well, it was. I don't think it is anymore.
It is. I looked. It is. This year still.
Oh, snap.
And I just looked this up.
You don't have universal background checks, though, so they'll dismiss Illinois right there because they say require background checks on all firearms. So that's just universal background check states. So Washington, Oregon.
We have background checks to get firearms, and we have to have a background check to get our permit to have a firearm.
Oh, yeah, the FOID. Yeah.
I don't know how they interpret it. Be curious. I'm sure they just adjust their interpretation to suit whatever argument they're trying to make, though.
Well, yeah, but see, I thought that Illinois, don't they keep it state pretty much? Like, keep it in the state? That's what I thought. Or do they do NICS also?
4473 still goes through the FBI. It has to.
No, every state participates in the NICS. They just,
Okay.
whether or not you participate in NICS at the gun shop or if the state requires another level where the state police will do the NICS because the gun shop reports it to the state police. They do whatever they're going to do in addition to the NICS and then the NICS also.
Oh.
You kind of pay usually a lot more because you're paying for the infrastructure, all that, and it'll take longer. But they're all participating in NICS. It's just that some states said NICS ain't enough, and we're going to add more burden to it. So the states that are like, we'll do whatever the minimum is, you just go to the gun shop and you fill out a 4473 and the gun shop interacts with the feds. That's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Here it is right here. Okay, I just scrolled down. So fact, a correct, thorough background check would have prevented the Charleston, South Carolina guy from purchasing guns. A national ban on assault weapons. Oh, wait. Hey, hang on a second. I'm going to just off topic. Wait for it, Night Strike. I got a good story for South Carolina here coming up pretty soon.
Oh, good.
So the South Carolina shooting, a national ban on assault weapons would have prevented the AR-556 guy from buying it at the Academy Sports in San Antonio. So that was the church shooter, the church murderer. In fact, when we analyzed Washington Post list of U.S. mass murders since '66, semi-automatic assault-style weapons were used in incidents that resulted in 253 deaths. From 1966? Who just said in the comments right now, 602 people died in Chicago this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
So,
1966, they're going to sit with a straight face suggest that 200 deaths since freaking 30 years ago is somehow something that needs to be dealt with at a national level. Are we going to just blow past all this?
Yeah.
So if you would have prevented him from legally purchasing the guns, so you can either say, so then he's going to get them other ways because you can legally purchase guns in about 12 different ways. And then you could also I like to just say, so let's say you got rid of all your guns. Did the disappearance of guns change this guy who you want to keep making famous by linking to him with his name? Did it make that guy sane again because guns don't exist? Now that guy is not going to do something crazy to that church in South Carolina?
Yeah.
So that's the answer to that stupid ass question. A national ban on assault weapons would have prevented from purchasing that. Okay, so again, the same exact arguments would have stopped him from lighting a match and getting some gasoline at the gas station. And what would a national ban on what they consider this, which is basically semi-automatic, what would that do? It would prevent anyone from just recreationally shooting. It would take away a hobby. It would take away a source of income. It would take away, all kinds of stuff. Think about how many pigs. I mean, just look at how many pigs would be running around causing trouble if people weren't out there taking them out constantly.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of repercussions that they're ignoring, either out of ignorance or willfully to sway the argument as if it's such a black and white issue. So right there,
sense of reality, right there.
well, they're just not aware. They're not aware of the full impact of just so simply saying a national ban on assault weapons. Okay, anyway, so I just figured we'd dissect that one because it's.
No, yeah, definitely. And then this one, I read further while G-Webs was talking. How about the small number of crimes that would be prevented if people were turned away because of mental health issue? And here it goes. What about the potential killers who would change their minds during a 3-day waiting period? This is a subject that we've talked about umpteen fucking times.
You know, I lived the 3-day waiting period. And, you know, how many of these quote unquote mass killers have done it with just one fucking gun? You know, did they buy everything that they owned at one time? Because once you have a gun, the 3-day waiting period makes zero.
Okay, so let's say they got rid of guns. We can't even own guns. If somebody wanted to be a mass murderer and use a firearm, would they not just mass murder a cop and steal a firearm? Would they not just, kill a military guy, steal a firearm, start shooting?
Just follow a cop. He's going to lose the damn thing eventually.
But I would say, again, start looking at what they're ignoring here. So the number of how about the small number of crimes that we prevented if people were turned away because of mental health? So let's talk about a country where you're giving an obligation to a federal government to keep tabs on who's healthy mentally. They can't keep tabs on who's got cancer, who's got, limbs that need help, who's got respiratory issues. And now we're going to go to mental. Non-obvious mental issues. We want a federal government that's that powerful. Even if you're not worried about a state that's that large or the implications there, let's talk about costs. We can't keep the cost straight on 26-year-old healthy men paying for all the fat ass motherfuckers who've been drinking soda and eating chips their whole lives, that are in hospitals. And, we can't figure out the physical health issues. Now we're going to be talking about the mental. And how you're going to be paying for all that? Where's the infrastructure? Who are all these mental health professionals that are going to somehow evaluate and I'm assuming counsel? Or are we just going to tag people mentally deficient? You can't own a gun. Go back into the population. I think this goes hand in hand.
They want to because then
giant state mental institutions.
They want to just have it arbitrarily then because anybody who they think is mentally deficient, they can just say, you're on the list.
Well, again, they're willing to dismiss the potential society that would be if the government did have the power to just deem you can't have a gun because we think you might, pre-crime, whatever. So, again, they're ignoring the dire freaking potential of what that society would be like. What the number of killers who would change their mind during a 3-day waiting period? Are you fucking serious? So you're saying that you get denied from the actual thing you want to do. Okay, you can't eat pizza. Does that mean you're like, fuck, I can't eat pizza today? Or do you go to another pizza place? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like, does that make the guy not want to eat pizza because you can't have it? No. So that's ridiculous. And what does a 3-day waiting period actually mean? Let's talk about the costs involved there. Now you got another layer of bureaucracy. You got forms that you got to fill out. You got paper. That means there's some printing press somewhere running, spilling ink out into a lake somewhere, you fucking hypocrite. So what the hell? So you're going to just let government bloat because you think a 3-day waiting period might change someone's opinion or like anger? It's ridiculous.
I took it farther than that, man. You've got more than one trip to the gun shop, so you're putting all that excess carbon into the air by driving.
Perfect. Exactly. So now you're
killing the fucking planet.
And let's look at the distance to gun shops because of your persecution of firearms and taking them out of society. There's fewer and fewer gun shops. People are driving further and further. Exactly. And they're not driving little cars. Hardly anybody's driving their Prius to the gun shop. They're driving their giant 4x4. Yeah. So what's the number of lives that we save by using small capacity magazines? Again, they're showing their ignorance on how the operation of these machines work. And let's say I just like to go to get rid of guns. Let's take guns out of the equation because you think they're magically horrible. Let's take guns out of the equation. So now they can't have any capacity magazines. Do you take away Bic lighters? Do you take away poison? Do you take away Fucking wire cutters? Like, what the fuck?
No, man, I got a Zippo lighter. I need this 50 gallons of lighter fluid.
And then I get to this. I go, I would suggest at some point, we're not just trying to make them scared and run away. I would suggest, say, look, you're been told that guns are the cause of all this. All I'm saying is, let's take guns out of the equation. Is that guy still mad? Is he still warped? Is he still deranged? No, he's still deranged, right? But here's the thing. There's a population of 360 million people in this country alone that have access to wire cutters and car keys and gasoline and lighters and poisons, right? And we're not killing each other because nobody's freaking that only happens every once in a freaking while. Every freaking once in a while. So this is all just a contrived argument, a contrived situation to get them money. Look at all these links. Every one of these links goes back to one of these Bloomberg-based things. So this Root or whatever the hell fake news place this is basically just a way to put out an article that looks, official because of its formatting and everything. It's of course a place to put ads, and you'll notice that none of these ads have anything to do with anything. They're just link farm ads. And then it creates a place for them to link back to their stupid websites like Everytown Research, which is a bullshit website that twists the facts to their agenda. And they need to desperately to make it seem more valid. So they create web pages like this that link to it, which give the perception of validity. If they can't get actual people to link to it because it's worthwhile information, then you create entities on the internet and you link to your own stuff. So this is literally just an attempt to kind of rig the system, and the facts are...
Well, that's all they got. Because the truth doesn't bear any of this shit out. I don't want to see anybody get killed with a gun or any other fucking method. And I certainly don't ever want to see anybody have to use a gun on another human being, because
it's not
something that, it's not anything I would wish on my worst enemy. But, we, in order to be free, we have to maintain our right to own guns. And that's why the second was written. It's still relevant today.
Yeah, well, this last paragraph pissed me off because he kind of like fucking har-harring at rape and shit. Based on the logic of quote, criminals don't care about gun laws, why make any law? Why should there be laws against rape or murder, since murderers are going to murder and rapists own rape? Now listen, the whole point why we say the criminals don't care about the laws, the gun laws, murder's already illegal. So if they use a gun in a murder's already fucking illegal. If they hold somebody up at gunpoint and rape them, rape is already illegal. So he doesn't make any sense right there. It kind of just pissed me off a little bit.
No, he's not acknowledging that what they're suggesting are additional laws, additional burden to the law abiding based on no facts. So he's suggesting, why can't you take even more regulation and restriction? Because he's suggesting the opposite of that is to make murder legal. Like, if you can't handle putting these many more things on here, why don't we just make murder legal? Like, no, that's not what we're doing. Murder is already legal, like you're saying, just like rape is illegal. Now you're going to suggest you shouldn't be able to drive a vehicle if you're a male because you could rape somebody in it. That's what they're basically saying. You shouldn't be able to own more than one condom at a time because you're a rapist. Right? You shouldn't be able to, go to more than 2 bars. If you're going to go to a bar, you have to fill out a form and let the government know. There should be maybe a level of government that keeps track of where dudes are so that they're not out there raping. Because what can a rapist do? He can go to one bar and rape, and then he goes to some other bar and he can rape, right? That's totally unregulated. So if you're going to say that there shouldn't be a regulation of where you're going into your bars, then you're basically for rape. So why don't we just take rape laws off the books? Isn't that what he's saying right here?
Yeah, pretty much. That's how I took it, and that's what kind of like frustrated me about that last paragraph. All right. How is strict gun regulation working out in Chicago? That's our argument again, and this is his. Chicago is white people's number one argument against everything, including gun control. And my question is, and I want to read the rest of this, but why make it about race? Like, don't they bitch about people always making things about race and, you know, everybody's racist and all this shit? But I don't know. You got to bring race into it. According to them, white people, even with its strict gun laws, Chicago is a big, bad boogie monster filled with murderous thugs who will gun you down at any time. It's the most dangerous city in America, and he spelled boogie like bogey. Except that it's not. Using the FBI's uniform crime reporting data, Chicago ranks 25th in murders per capita again. Far behind cities like Jackson, Mississippi, Savannah, Georgia, who have fucking tiny populations, and Kansas City.
And East St. Louis, Illinois.
He didn't mention that. In fact, when you look at Politic's ranking of states with the toughest gun laws of 24 cities, with higher murder rates than Chicago's, 15 of them are in states with gun laws laxer than Illinois'. Chicago's population dwarfs most of the other cities, which is why we hear more often about the large numbers of death in the Windy City. But according to the numbers in Chicago, ain't got shit on Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, you know,
Professional writer right there.
Michael Harriot, and he's also the host of the Black One podcast.
Okay, they're bullshitting here.
Go ahead.
Oh, like,
And
go ahead, Tony.
and the editor-in-chief of digital magazine Niggas Who Read.
So
Yeah, no,
Negus.
I mean,
they're trying to say Chicago ain't that bad, right? So using the FBI's blah 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 data, Chicago ranks 25th in murders per capita. And then he goes on to distract you with a bunch of other cities. Then you look at whatever this place is, probably another Bloomberg thing or some equivalent, right? That justifies their thing. But
I never heard of
have to go. At least they're linking to it, but they're not. It's not like they're doing this in an attempt to give you research or give you reference to cited work, as much as, like I was saying, just trying to boost their own search engine rankings by making themselves look like they've got, you know, worth. Anyhow, they're saying that when you look at it, whatever, so then they're saying that they're putting it into the sorting the cities per capita, which is basically distracting the whatever the conversation away from the numbers. So they're going to say blah 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 numbers up here are so bad, and that gun owners are to blame for the blah 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 numbers or whatever. If they were to start talking about numbers down here instead of rank, you know, Chicago, and then in a parentheses 500 murders per year, you know, ranks blah 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 behind Jackson, Mississippi per capita with probably, you know, 13 or 30 or something murders per year. Not only would it show that they're trying to use statistics in a way to manipulate statistics and to, you know, get their agenda across or their point across, but it would also show that once you add it up to just the numbers that they're talking about and just the few sample cities they're talking about here, you'd see that a majority, almost all of the numbers they're talking about up here aren't in fact the gun owners who are sitting out there minding their business. All our guns are in closets right now, but instead all in these cities with the worst crime, with the worst infringements on gun control. You're right. So they're what do they call that? Distracted and go into different numbers to try to justify that if you looked at the actual numbers here, they're fucked.
Just as a kind of side note, you see that picture on the 30 cities with the highest murder rates thing?
Oh, yeah, St. Louis.
But that picture was taken from East St. Louis. Whoever took that photo was standing in East St. Louis.
Was just some other city, and this was a giant robot who was standing on robot legs. They couldn't afford to show the top of the arch. Hell, Like the arch isn't, what, the top of the arch also?
It's just
Believe me,
Arch.
I've looked at that view 1,000 times from working down there.
When you work in the docks on the other side of the river?
No, I worked at the federal courthouse in East St. Louis.
It's a bit
go to
different.
McDonald's. You go to McDonald's, you can see 2 golden arches. So there. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with the gun. Let's wrap this fucking thing up on some common sense, fellas. Gun
If it
advocates.
must.
Gun advocates live under the delusion. After he did the whole white people thing, I'm still curious if he thinks all gun advocates are white people. But anyway, gun advocates live under the delusion that they are all John Wayne, waiting for a bad guy to ride into town. The truth is, a good guy with a gun never stops a bad guy with a gun. Even though the Sutherland Spring, Texas thing, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Facts say otherwise. They're saying he's alluding to the guy killing himself. The 2015 study of FBI and national crime by the Violence Policy Center concluded that people are more likely to cause an accidental death and prevent a crime with pulling a gun in self-defense. The Washington Post reports that for every justifiable homicide using a gun, there are 34 criminal suicides, 78 gun suicides, and 2 accidental deaths.
Criminal suicides. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hillary Clinton? That's Hillary Clinton's suicide.
Yeah, you need some help? Dr. Kevorkian and shit. Yes, it's true that an FBI report on active shooters between 2000 and 2013 PDF it's a PDF file, shows that 3% of those incidents were stopped by a civilian with a gun. But the same report shows that 13% of those events were halted by unarmed citizens.
All right, let's stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this part, gun advocates live under the delusion that we're all John Wayne waiting for a bad guy running town. Well, he's living under the delusion that we're living under this delusion. So he doesn't know who we are. So how can he know what we're thinking? So this shows what he's thinking. This shows what he's thinking of us, right? So the truth is that, like I've said before, the fact that there's lethal consequences for an action requires no one carrying a gun. It simply requires an open society that says there's lethal consequences for an action. So if you try to hurt or, all things that there's lethal justification for, if you try to do any of those things to society has a right, and some would say an obligation, to lethally resist that, to resist it to the point where you're going to die. That prevents crime. So the fact that you live in a place where there is CCW prevents crime. So it has nothing to do with the individual who's carrying a gun. That little old lady who puts a little 380 in her pocket so that she feels more comfortable, walking down to the place to do whatever old lady business, he's ignoring that lady. And, and that's obvious with this John Wayne bullshit, because, she isn't certainly waiting for nobody to ride into nothing. She just wants to go live her life, and that makes her feel a little more comfortable, perhaps.
Right.
So that's the part where he's, again, ignoring the actual facts of this thing. And then he's going to go in and link to his Violence Policy Center and whatnot as he further, dissuades or, goes off on this red herring that somehow he's going to rebut this concept that we're all sitting around waiting for a bad guy. And, my point is that it kind of shows here that you don't need to have anybody with a gun to prevent the crime from happening. And here you would just, compare us with any of the other countries that have thugs and bullies that just go around being bullies and thugs because they know there's no lethal consequences for doing so.
Aside from a slap on the wrist, possibly.
So again, if you're not going to acknowledge that there's a lot of crimes that never happen, and then every once in a while there's an accident, is, fine. If they're not going to acknowledge that crime is prevented by the fact that there's lethal consequences, then, you can beg to differ. But then if they're going to suggest that accidental deaths are such a problem, let's put some numbers in here. Go to your violence policy bullshit, warped Bloomberg-based numbers, but let's go to the FBI and the Center for Disease Control, and all of those numbers show that accidents are going down and down, in spite of the fact that the one thing that you can't teach in school is gun safety. So they don't do any kind of formal gun safety education in any public education. And in defiance of that, in spite of that situation that's created by the left, accidents are going down, and that's 100% based on the millions of gun owners who are successfully teaching their own kids and other kids who aren't raised by gun owners to stay safe with guns. And it also means all those gun owners are keeping their guns so secure that those kids aren't having accidents. And if that's the case, then again, show me how all these guns are being stolen. How can they be stolen if they're so safe that kids aren't even having accidents with them? So they're ignoring a whole chunk right there. And then what the hell's a fucking criminal suicide? So, if they're going to start putting suicide in here again, the lack of a tool, are you going to suggest to me that when you take away the firearms, you click your little red heels together and there's no more firearms on the planet, those people are still not going to be depressed and think about gravity or pills or drowning or whatever the hell else people do to commit suicide?
A criminal suicide is the way for this guy to discount what the dude in Texas did to stop that guy from continuing killing people.
So you mean he's going to count the bad guy killing himself as a gun death?
He's going to count the bad guy killing himself as what stopped the guy, not the guy who shot him first and made him drop his freaking rifle and run.
And then they got 78 gun suicides and 2 accidental deaths, whatever the hell all that is.
Yeah.
So they're going to come up with somehow 100 suicides for every justifiable use of a firearm.
I don't believe it either.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Definitely skewed in order to, I think, to just, they dismiss that concept. They put this projection out there and then try to, they're just banking, they're just pushing this more.
Can we wrap this up? This has been going on long enough.
Ask and you shall receive. So you know what else stops a bad guy with guns? Fewer guns with bad guys for bad guys, making it more difficult for bad guys to acquire guns. We already been over this. Senators and members of the House who aren't lackeys of terrorist organization called the NRA. Perhaps the most effective weapon against a bad guy with a gun is the one thing we all seem to lack: common sense. Yeah, give me your shit, motherfucker. Hey, excuse me, sir. Can we just talk about this? I know that you're in a drug-induced rage right now, but let's use some common sense, guys. You know,
this is 13% less likely to happen in a state where there's fewer gun control laws.
Yeah.
Problem is that we have laws in place already that would prevent most of these people from acquiring a gun, but they fucking get them anyway. So the only way that you can make this work is to confiscate and destroy every gun.
Yeah.
And that ain't gonna happen.
Well, I'd like to say fuck this guy. I don't think of myself as John Wayne. I'm more of a Steven Seagal. I like to use like karate mixed with guns. So fuck him. He's got his facts all wrong on that one. And
No
on
shit,
a serious
I
note,
would be more like Clint Eastwood and the man with no name.
yeah, and on a serious,
most where I'm going.
but seriously though, I mean this and the whole Chicago thing kind of like pissed me off too, because obviously this motherfucker has never been. I mean the whole article pissed me off, but obviously this motherfucker's never been to Chicago and shit.
This dude is a black guy,
Yes.
so he's not going to throw the truth out there about that. The whole large majority of black men killing other black men in Chicago and other inner cities.
Yeah, but see, I know a couple black dudes, especially from Chicago, and they're like, they don't want this shit happening either. They want this shit, the word to get out. So maybe one day this shit'll stop, or not stop, but subside a little bit or something. Only motherfuckers that don't want this shit out there like that is the motherfuckers doing it. I digress. Fuck this guy.
All this gang-related activity flies in the face of all the stuff they're saying on the anti-gun side, because these people are all getting guns illegally. They're already prevented from having the guns that they're using in these crimes.
Yeah. All right. Los Angeles, California, October 25th. GTX Corporation